Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? And we're here talking about the Galaxy S9 Plus once again, but we're also going to bring back the iPhone X. Now, I do remember that we did a short comparison, kind of a quick look before the full review of the S9 came out, but we're revisiting it because I did use the iPhone X just a little bit more since then, and we also did some camera tests, which we are providing in a separate piece here at the YouTube channel and also at AndroidAuthority.com. So you can see all of the camera samples and everything from there. Also, if you want to get even more information about these phones, I did do a full write-up at AndroidAuthority.com, but in this video I'm just going to share some of my main thoughts. The iPhone X has some really obvious omissions, including no more home button. That iconic home button's not even there anymore. Now you have a full screen on the front, which in and of itself is pretty nice, but it's occluded with that notch at the top. Now, the reason why the notch is so interesting is because in Android, we're going to start seeing it more often. So I kept wanting to use the iPhone X to see if I would get past the notch, and yes, I got used to it after a while, but there's some instances, especially with video games, full screen apps, and YouTube videos in particular, where that notch actually occluded a small part of the left side of the video when viewing in landscape. But without that home button and without anything like, let's say, the soft keys that are on the bottom of the Galaxy S9 and pretty much any other Android device, what you have to do is swipe up from the bottom and you hold it there to go to the recent app screen, or if you're inside of an app, you swipe up to go back to home. That notch also rears its ugly head again because to the right of the notch you can swipe downward to get to the control center, so that is where you get your quick settings, like similarly to the Android version. And then if you want to get to your notifications, which is a fairly recent development, you can go to the left of the notch, so it matters where you swipe down. Thank goodness the iPhone X is a smaller device overall because, well, maneuvering around that notch is a bit of a pain, and it would be worse if the phone was any larger. Now, about that home button, that also means you no longer have a fingerprint reader, and that might be something that is contentious to some people, but you do have Face ID, which is the main security measure for biometrics on the iPhone X. You just scan your face, and no matter what angle it's at, the phone will try to recognize your face and unlock the device immediately after you wake it up. You do have something like that in the S9 as well, with Face Unlock and Iris scanning, which have been put together into the Intelligence Scan, but thankfully the fingerprint reader on the back has been put in a much better place, and you can actually stack the fingerprint reader on top of the intelligence scan so you have even more biometric meters for security. And in the case of iOS, even if it doesn't have the personalization that the Galaxy S9 has, for example, I even have a lock screen that allows for a 15-second video. Well, that's always really nice, and you can make that very personal. And then there's also the always on display, which is not something that you find on the iPhone X, but it does light up immediately when you raise the phone, so that Face ID is looking for your face and it will go straight into the operating system no matter what. Daily usage has also been really reliable on both of these. After all, these are the top phones in their respective ecosystems. You have the Snapdragon 845 in this S9 Plus with 6GB of RAM, which is different from the 4 you get in the smaller version. And then it's kind of hard to compare that to the performance of the iPhone X, which has the Apple A11 Bionic and 3GB of RAM, which is perfect for what iOS needs. After all, sometimes it feels like Android requires a bit too much out of its processing packages, but that makes a little bit of sense because iOS is catered to one particular device, and they can optimize it properly. The S9 Plus provides so many different ways of doing things like multitasking, like with Android Oreo, there is the picture-in-picture, and on top of that, you have the Edge UX, which just gives you a more convenient way of accessing your contacts and your shortcuts, and maybe even some extra feeds. Now, bringing back the iPhone X, both Bixby and Google Assistant, you can pick either one, and in my opinion, they're going to be way better than Siri ever has been, because Siri, they haven't really put a whole lot of new features into Siri. It's still just basically a voice command assistant, and it doesn't do much more like live translations or food recognition in Bixby, or even everything that Google Assistant might have that you probably enjoy already if you're an Android purist. Now, battery life has also been different between these two. If there's one thing that I've noticed with the iPhone X that I have noticed with previous iPhone devices, the standby time is pretty great. If you're not using your phone and it's just kind of sitting around, it keeps its charge pretty well, and if you're not that heavy of a user, you should be able to get quite a bit of time out of these devices. Fast charging is a thing here. With the included charger of the Galaxy S9 Plus, you're able to get 50% of the battery pretty quickly, but the included charger with the iPhone X doesn't have that same capability. There is fast charging involved with the iPhone X, but you have to use specific chargers and cables to make that happen. So now we can talk about the cameras, and you have similar cameras on here with 2 lens setups, including a telephoto lens. But Samsung really tried to put its best foot forward with the main lens, and it's something that we talk about a lot because it's honestly pretty exciting. That main lens has f1.5 aperture and then actual blades inside that stop it down to f2.4. Now that's really awesome, and there are benefits to it if as a photographer you know how to take advantage of it. But the takeaway is that in the automatic mode, you could just let it change itself accordingly and you won't really notice the difference. On the other hand, the iPhone X has an f1.8 aperture in the main lens, and the secondary lens has f2.4 aperture, which is the same case with the telephoto lens on the S9 Plus. But when you take into account daylight shots with these rear cameras, you're going to get good results no matter what. Both of these cameras do a really good job as long as the lighting is good, but we have to put a feather in the cap of the Galaxy S9 Plus because its low light capabilities are really top notch. That f1.5 aperture really floods in a great amount of light, and then there's multi-frame processing on top of that because there is RAM built into the actual camera module. Dozens of photos are taken at the same time, and all of that data is processed in such a way that provides the best possible final result. Of course, one of the main points to the iPhone X is the portrait mode. And if we go to the portrait mode here, there are a number of different modes that allow for different lighting effects to be applied to the cutout as long as it's able to get the cutout properly. That's a bit of a hit or miss situation. You may not get the best cutout from the background, whether you're using the rear camera or you can actually use the portrait mode on the front-facing camera. So you would be able to change what type of lighting you get, even a stage light or just a mono stage light for a black and white photo. And it's something that you are able to use to get something stylized, even if it's pretty obvious that it is software based compared to normal photography methods. But then again, the same can be said for the beauty modes when you use the front-facing camera of the Galaxy S9 Plus. Obviously, they're doctored, and they might be too heavily doctored that it kind of takes you out of that picture. Overall, the camera does provide even more options on top of everything we've just talked about, including modes that are all at the top here. Super slow mode and AR emoji are the 2 big marquee features, and we've documented them quite extensively already on pieces here at AndroidAuthority.com. You also have a lot of manual controls in the Pro mode, which gives you control over the shots, which is just something you don't get on the iPhone X. So let us know what you think about this comparison in the comments down below, and if you have opinions on either of these devices, let us know those as well. One really great thing would be if you're looking to jump from one ecosystem to the other. It doesn't matter in which direction, we would love to hear about that, and let us know what is making your decision, what is informing that decision. And we might comment on them down in the comment section down below, or we might take some of the top comments and respond to them in a future piece of content which you can look forward to here at the YouTube channel. Keep it tuned to Android Authority, hit that subscribe button, but also hit the bell next to it, and then stick around and go to AndroidAuthority.com for even more because we are, of course, your source for all things Android.